how ay 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 ay, how we out, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, how ay 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 ay, how ay 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 ay.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host Kira Young, and you have reached me on Revolution Radio. Tonight we are also simulcasting with Real Liberty Media and People's Internet Radio. And we have a real special treat for you because we are also live streaming the show tonight. We're still setting that up. We have several guests tonight. And across the pond, we welcome the residents of the Kirby Misperton camp with Ian R. Crane. And I see two other people there. What are the other folks' names over there? Ian, Gabby,
Steve.
And Steve.
Yeah.
Welcome to the bridge. We're getting things set up here. We're going to have BJ Nastacio, who's going to be coming to us from North Dakota. He's still at Standing Rock, and there's still some things going on there, so he's going to tell us about that. And then we have Unpa Numpa, who's been telling us the entire story of everything that's been going on at Standing Rock from the summer up until now. And he'll be joining us from phone. Steve is producing the show tonight. Steve, how you doing getting BJ on the line here?
I can get that right now.
Okay.
I had to figure out which number that is that you give me. But
it's the sister one, Janine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I thought I drugged that one in, but obviously.
Oh, okay.
There's
here we go.
Coming up now.
All right. Oh, it failed.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Crap. All right, so let's start the conversation, then we'll try to get BJ back in here in a minute. How long have you all been there in the camp trying to stop fracking in the UK?
Kirby Misperton, we moved on this site on the 20th of December. We've been on there a few weeks, and we're getting the camp prepared for what is the biggest battle in the fracking in the UK. Since the original frack over in Blackpool that caused the earthquake in 2011.
Right. So how many fracking wells do you have in the UK presently?
One.
So,
you have 1 million. We have one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. And I wasn't at all surprised to see someone from Pennsylvania join you in your last broadcast that you did. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, he rocked up to about 3 hours before we were due to go live, and he did plan to go, and I hadn't got a sort of fixed game plan. And the more I spoke with him, I realised that people across the UK, and so yeah. An episode of Traffic Nightmare has, I think, had something like about 12,000 views on Facebook in the last few days. So it's certainly got people's attention.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to say is I'm glad that you only have one and that you have a chance to really stop the kind of nightmare that we're living with in the U.S. People from Pennsylvania are literally turning their faucets on and they can light their water on fire. And, you know, no amount of energy that we get from fracking is worth that cost, ever. It's simply not worth it.
In the US, I mean, you know, obviously you've got 15, perhaps nearly 20 years of experience, but certainly 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it's not just, of course, the fracking, it's also the re-injection. And, you know, what people don't realize is that there is a phenomenal amount of waste product. It's not just the fluids that you pump down the hole. It's also the produced water that comes back with the frack fluid.
Hello?
We got
Good,
Hey,
come on, right?
got a little background noise there. Turn on your camera.
that's coming from Janine, I think.
PJ, you have a lot of
That
background
background
noise.
noise is coming from Janine.
PJ.
Yeah,
There's a lot
Yeah, that background noise, Kira, isn't coming from here. It's coming
Yeah,
from Janine, who seems to have just come on
yeah.
onto
Hello?
the line.
yes, there's a lot of background noise.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got to get to a quieter spot.
Yeah,
And,
I'm
okay,
to the
that's
truck
better.
right now.
Okay,
How you
much
guys
better.
doing?
Good. Hey, can you turn your camera on? Are you able to join us by camera?
Okay. Video.
Video.
Okay.
So, Kira, you're in Virginia, is that right?
Yeah, Northern Virginia on the West Virginia border, Winchester.
Right. So, I mean, Virginia's had its problems, but I mean, I think one of the most significant issues of the US that we better all start learning from fast is what's happened in Oklahoma, where Oklahoma has become the earthquake capital of the US.
That's
I think
right.
prior to 2008, Oklahoma was geologically
For
and
some reason, my camera
stable.
went on.
But it's now literally taken over from California as the earthquake center.
Which is absolutely astonishing how quickly that can happen. And I don't think it's any mistake too that it's in Indian country, because that's the land that the government goes for first to take over is through Indian country. So now not only Oklahoma has tornadoes to look forward to, but earthquakes as well. It used to be, each area of the country had its own little bad type of weather, but now Oklahoma is not even livable. The water's poison there as well. So my last guest is living in Oklahoma right now, and there's no clean water for them to drink on the reservation, the Comanche reservation at all. So it's pretty terrible. Are you having a hard time there, BJ?
Yeah, I'm trying to get this camera on, but it's not letting me.
Okay. Sorry. Well, if you, I want to introduce you to Ian Crane, who, with his friends, started a camp over in the UK to stop fracking, and they're up in the where is it? North. Where are you?
Yeah. We're
North Yorkshire. In the rolling hills of North Yorkshire comes Ian Crane.
Pretty good effort.
All right, thank you.
Hobbits are going to appear now. Hey. How you guys doing?
So they've been there since December, so they're not worn out yet like you guys are being there.
I'm not worn out yet. Hey.
Oh, you got a long way to go.
I'm Pueblo boy.
So you've been there for like what, 5 months, 6 months?
Yeah,
now?
Going on 6. I've been here since August. August.
Wow. And yeah, that's when things got really kicking off there in Standing Rock was August, and all of the actions.
Oh yeah.
The main difference, I think, between what you guys are doing in your camp over there in the UK, I don't think you're going to be facing a militarized police force like we are over here. Yeah, it hopefully not, but because hopefully there's no agreement with your government to use the old war toys that they've been using in the Middle East, because that's what they did in North Dakota. Was they just rolled up in their tanks that they got from the war, and their LRAD and their sponge grenades and their tear gas.
Nice toys.
Yeah. So, but I did want to point this out that, the history of the world is like the history of this kind of psychopathic takeover where bureaucracy just like with the stroke of a pen, steamrolls over life for profit. And it came our way from your way. And now I'm here to warn you that it's coming back. This I don't know, psychopathic organizing principle. It works like a wave, and then it goes back and forth until we stop it with things like we're doing right now. Just saying no, we're not going to. We do not comply. So I just wanted to ask if in the UK, what your actions look like compared to what you've seen coming out of Standing Rock, what your nonviolent direct actions look like.
Well, fortunately, as you rightly say, we don't have the militarized police, and the police here are trying to find the right balance so that they can still pretend to be protecting the interests of the public, whilst, of course, in reality, they are simply protecting the interests of the corporations. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, what we're facing is the global corporatocracy, where human life is mere collateral. And, the fact that this industry uses the term sacrifice zone, for wherever it wants to establish a footprint, is pretty descriptive. And the absurdity is that, everywhere this has established itself in the US, whether it's Texas, California, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, everybody's heard the same story, which is that we have the best regulations, we have gold standard regulation, and just because they've had problems in that direction, doesn't mean to say that we're going to have them here. And then, of course, after nearly 10 years of experience of this industry in the US, it reared its head in Australia in 2006, and the residents of southern Queensland heard exactly the same thing. Nothing to worry about here. It's safe. We've got gold standard regulation. And within 2 years, the water supplies for the agricultural community in southern Queensland were contaminated. People were losing their boreholes. And now an area of southern Queensland the size of the UK has effectively become unfarmable. And, the Great Artesian Basin, which is one of the planet's great water reserves, and this industry is depleting the Great Artesian Basin at a rate 6 times greater than it can naturally replenish. Wow. And now here we are in the UK, another 10 years on, being told that, it's a novel industry. We have no experience of this industry, and we have gold standard regulation. And, of course, what we try and do is encourage people to do their own research, to take a look at the experiences of people in the US, in Australia, and then say, so what makes you think that, the magnitude of the devastation that we see from this industry in the US and in Australia, what makes us think it's not going to happen here in the UK? And a small number of people swallow the bullshit, but fortunately, the vast majority, once they actually do take a look at it, they realize that this is something that, that shouldn't be in not only their backyard, but anybody else's backyard. We are a small, densely populated island. The population of the UK is about 60-odd million. But just to put it in perspective, I mean, the UK is about half the size of Texas.
Right.
So, the population density here is, even though we're in a relatively thinly populated part of the country, we are still 100 times more densely populated than southern Queensland, for example. So, we have to stop this. We've had one well drilled, and, one of the things that I hear many of the farmers say is, all of this, it started with just one well. And if you can stop the first well, then, you've got a good chance of being able to nip it in the bud. But if you're still thinking you can stop it by the time they're drilling the 10,000th well, then unfortunately you're fighting a serious rearguard action.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's where we're at. And the industry is an industry of violence. It's an industry of veiled violence. But so in the UK, this violence it's more subtle, and then in the US, it's even more severe. But then when you go down into South America, indigenous environmental leaders are literally being murdered. So this oil, let's make no mistake that this oil industry is full of violence, and they're willing to kill to keep making their money. So I wanted to give BJ the opportunity to tell you his story, because he's one of our heroes at Osheti Shakoi, and he saved the entire camp from a mercenary, basically, who was hired by the oil industry to, I think, get some people killed. So tell your story again, BJ, about how you guys surrounded this guy, and you were unarmed, and he had really hardcore weaponry that he was driving in the camp with.
Well, I'm BJ Nastacio. I'm from San Felipe Pueblo. I've been here at camp for since August, and on October 27th, we were taking guys back to camp that got injured on the front lines, and we went back to camp real quick to make some tuna sandwiches to go take back to the guys in the front. And then coming up over the hill, there was a bunch of people, more than what I left. And then the people stopped me, and I seen a guy with a gun, just pointing it at people. It was a AR-15. He had 230 round clips. It was loaded. We went and peacefully disarmed him. We handed him over to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which then handed him over to Morton County, and they let him go. And then they slapped me with Class C felony charges on the first week of December, and I had to find out on Facebook that I had warrants out for my arrest. And the scary thing about it is that there's no telling what this guy was gonna do after all the video footages that I've seen. He was using that gun for fear. He a lot of people were scared. Didn't know what to do. People were ducking. People were running, but at the same time, people were wanting to get all that on camera, so that way they can see the severity of how people are being treated out here for the oil that they want. And even before this happened, there was that dog incident, and then people just let them dogs loose, and they bit innocent women and children. And that was what more are these guys gonna do? They brandish a gun, pretty soon they're gonna start killing people, and that's gonna be all right with the police, because in my case they're after me. Although I turned myself in, I still gotta face the judge and the jury if it goes that far. But then I feel that I'm not gonna have a fair trial here. You know what I mean? All these people here show that that they want this, and they show the hate. And where I come from, it's like you don't see that. The natives out here are different. They're like used to this stuff, and that's what gets me. Like how could you be used to something like this out here? So it's like there was a pipeline issue at first, and now it's like a humanity issue, a civil rights issue. It's all these issues put together now, and it's a scary thing. And I'm sitting right here in Bismarck right now, looking at all these people who are clueless to what's going on in their own backyard.
Yeah. So you have a upcoming court date?
Yeah. I got a preliminary hearing on February 7th. I went in, turned myself in a couple weeks ago, um, I went up to the Martin County Police Department, and all these cops are all just looking at me, and for being a wanted man, they didn't know who I was, and so I walked in, waving at everybody and asking them asking them where I go to turn myself in, and then I showed them my ID, and then their whole face just changed, and like their whole demeanor changed. Like, it wasn't such a pleasant, greeting that I came and turned myself in, and their whole face just turned. I'm like, why are we smiling at this guy? But even there was a little nice old lady in the background. She was like, "Oh, I never seen anybody so happy to turn themselves in." And then I was like, "Well, I feel like I didn't do nothing wrong, so I just, figured it was time to turn myself in. I don't want to make it look like I was running or nothing, so might as well get it out of the way if, the guy doesn't want to drop the charges." So I went ahead and
So
turned myself in.
have you been told, you might be told, I should say, at your upcoming hearing that you have to pay back Morton County, even though the Constitution guarantees you a lawyer. If you got a lawyer from Morton County, which they don't have enough lawyers there for all the people they've arrested, they're going to tell you have to pay it back because the prosecutor is arguing that we shouldn't have to pay for activists, people who are working with activist lawyers, because the whole strategy is to overwhelm the system.
I don't think I'm an activist. I think I was doing the cops' job. I think I was doing their job. They should pay me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They should. Yeah, I should go and put in an application or something and ask for back pay.
Yeah, first responder pay.
I mean, yeah, over at my camp, Pueblo camp, we have first responders. We have 2 guys on the team that are, well trained in EMT things, and we have swimmers, we have divers, we have search and rescue, we have a cold water rescue, and all in all, we just like to, bring our traditional values and beliefs here to Standing Rock to help the people, and that's what we've been doing here the whole time, and we're trying to show them what unity is really all about, because we may be 19 pueblos, but we all help each other's out, even though we're not, we don't speak the same language or whatever, but we still carry that, that sense of unity amongst all the people in New Mexico, especially all the Pueblo natives.
Yeah. So, so BJ, do you think that the people in the UK will have to be careful about the police changing their tactics because the oil industry is involved in this?
I think they should be prepared, for it, just in case something like this happens there. You know what I mean? It doesn't hurt to be prepared. It's kind of hard to say, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to be prepared.
Oh, what do you over in the Kirby camp think of when you hear this? How this extreme story?
We've experienced police violence over here. I was on the Barton Moss campaign from 2013 to 2014. From day one, the police came in and they were assaulting peaceful protesters, and they just maintained that. In Greater Manchester, they used the tactical aid unit, which is the violent form of the police, to deal with peaceful protesters. And we saw assault after assault after assault. I was videoing on that exercise, and I documented that. There was bogus, over 300 bogus, trumped up and ridiculous charges people were arrested for. And they had the quota system for 5 a day. I was one of those days. I was thrown to the ground twice, then thrown in, and then arrested for driving charge. Even though I was on a public footpath, I had no car, keys, and I told the officer that I had been drinking tea that morning. That video went viral from that particular incident, and that should be a warning to the UK that they use violence to help protest.
You're cutting out there a little bit, Steve.
The police are on standby with tasers, which are considered a firearm in this country, just because of our presence. And there's only a handful of us here on site, but the police felt the need to have firearms on standby to deal with it.
Okay, you cut out a little bit there, Steve. But from what the end of it I got, you said that tasers are used and are considered a weapon in your country because
a firearm.
A firearm.
Okay.
Wow.
And the UK police have a record of killing people. They can kill you on the streets and kill you in police cells and get away with it. There's no accountability, even in the UK, for if the police use a deadly force against people. So it's open for that to happen. If a police officer shoots you dead on, to kill you, they're never held accountable. They never stand trial for murder or anything like that. It's always a health and safety violation or something like that. If they're ever held to account.
Yeah, it used to be that it was really uncommon for the police to even have a firearm.
We see it all the time now. They started arming them at airports. I was in Tesco a few months ago, and just a big shopping centre, and the police walked in openly carrying firearms. That hit the press when I publicised that, and it's just become standard practice for the police to carry firearms in this country, and they just, they're openly showing now, getting the people used to it, ready for when they roll it out. Every officer is going to have one, and they'll do it in the name of terrorism,
right?
Which is bogus and trumped up. They're the terrorists, the people that are running the show and enforcing these dangerous industries through. It's going to kill people, and they know it. They're the psychopaths that are pushing the industries. So there's absolutely no excuse. We're prepared to stand up and stop the industry dead in this country, and we fully support people in America, Australia, and their battles to get rid of the industry once and for all.
How is the surrounding community treating you? The campers, are they friendly to you, or do they not want you there?
Who, me? We've got massive support.
In the UK, sorry, BJ.
In North Yorkshire, we've got massive support. The whole camp is based on donation and the cold spell at the minute, and there's no end of wood being dropped off that so we can get warmer out and keep warm, and it's absolutely massive. The only negative we get off of people who believe that they're going to profit out of this dire industry and believe the hollow promises.
So that's a massive difference than what you're experiencing there in Standing Rock, BJ.
Yeah.
The surrounding community is very hostile.
Wow.
So have you seen that change at all? Have the surrounding community become any better or any worse?
Well, I don't know. After after hearing that, and I took a step back and really looking at it, I do feel a little hostility going on. All the now that it's wintertime and they think that Pueblos and all these other natives that are here can't stand the winter here. I mean, this really ain't nothing. I remember when it used to snow in New Mexico, and basically the same thing. But it's like I feel being here because I don't know if they got bought out or whatever, but they're like really trying to push all the campers out because of, I don't know, now that resolution went out, all that donations that was going to all the campers at the Ochete Shikoi camp, it's not going to the camps no more. It's all going to Standing Rock because apparently they're broke and need to pay some debts that they created throughout this whole ordeal. But I don't know. It's like they just want us out, but I'm not going nowhere because I don't have nowhere to go anymore. After that incident with the guy with the gun in the water, um, nothing's really happened. Nobody from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe or anybody from the so-called Great Sioux Nation ever came to me to offer help, except for, people that weren't from there, and they're the ones that are putting that call out for water protectors. So yeah, I feel some hostility there, and whether they like it or not, I'm gonna stay because I don't have a home to go to. I'm a builder in Denver. I was doing good for myself, and I've depleted all my personal funding and everything just to be here and support these people and fight alongside them. And then now they pull back and they just want us to go home. And then when you go around town here, you get all these non-natives be like, get the F out of here, we're gonna F you up. And it's just really, this is wow to me. Like, I never expected this, man. I figured that these people would be fighting alongside me to save their water. I mean, they're from here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a weird situation. But I think that there's still a lot of battles going on. And so, if you wanted to go to another camp, that you would be welcome there as well. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to bring in Unpa Numpa, who is also at Standing Rock from August and just recently broke camp. He was at Zinkala Luazan and Wion camp within Ochete Shikoi. And they're probably going to head down to Florida or Texas. And then there's also going to be camps that will spring up in Alabama and in Georgia to fight the same Sable pipeline that's down there in Florida. And they are inspired by Standing Rock to do so because one of the things that is different about Standing Rock is they started fighting it after it was already being built, like literally stopping it from being built. So, and that's what's happening down in Florida as well, and in Texas. So, the tribal government, U.S. government situation is set up to fail.
Almost definitely, I agree with you there.
Yeah. So, our tribal leaders and tribal councils are having to make damned if you do, damned if you don't decisions every single day. And so for myself, I'm probably a little bit older than you, BJ, but when I went to Standing Rock, I knew that eventually it would get co-opted and that the powers that be, the psychopaths in charge, as I call them, would do what they could to destroy the precious unity that we had achieved.
Oh, I've seen that firsthand too.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of people trying to throw my camp out because I guess they felt like we were a threat because I guess we were saving too many lives or something.
Yeah. And so the I call it the situation that the reservation situation creates is a living in lack, and we see this not only on reservations, but this is the violence of poverty. It puts us in a situation where we can't act naturally like we normally would as humans, in just always wanting to care for others and make sure that not only ourselves, but our families and communities are okay, but it's always like, I need to get mine. And even when we get out of that situation, if we're lucky enough to get out of it, we still have to heal that wound that we feel like we'll never have enough because we didn't for a long time. And so I see that always rearing its ugly head whenever we make steps forward, is that, well, I got to get mine now out of this. So I kind of knew it was going to happen, and I tried to enjoy the unity while we had it. And then now I think it's the next chapter is going to be born out of this. You know, we're going to keep fighting pipelines because they're building them in everywhere, and it's all Indian land. This whole country is Indian land, and this whole world is Indigenous land. So it's worth fighting for. And, you know, maybe you could go where you're invited, because you're really needed
right now.
Yeah, that's right. And they need you, and you would be welcome there. Totally.
I'll take Angry Bird with me.
Yeah, the Seminole would, I'm sure, welcome you with open arms in Florida.
Maybe they have rodeos down there.
Maybe you could start one. Yeah. So let's go back to the UK here for a minute, and I see one person sitting there. Hello.
I'm here, and Gabby's here at the moment.
Okay, so you guys are gonna get closer together there. So when you saw the footage coming out of Standing Rock, how did you feel? Did you feel like this is amazing, this is horrible, or I wanna get more involved because this is a fight worth fighting for?
Well, actually, I have to say that I mean, for the last few years, I have been liaising with people across the US who have been trying to fight fracking. And the reality is, obviously, New York State is a success story. But elsewhere in the country, the activists, in many cases, are operating alone. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with Vera Scroggins in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And she's had slap orders put on her. But, you know, she operates alone. Mm-hmm. So this industry pretty much has everybody in its pocket, as you know. I mean, it buys its way out of problems or threatens its way out of problems.
Or kills its way.
Or kills its way, exactly. So, you know, it's been with, if you like, some frustration that, you know, we've seen over 1 million wells now, well over 1 million wells being, you know, drilled in the US. The devastation to the ecology right across the areas wherever there's a shale play is irrefutable and undeniable. You know, there are many academic studies now which prove the devastation, but the industry, just like the tobacco CEOs back in the mid-90s, well, that's 20 years ago, 96, wasn't it? And the tobacco CEOs all lined up in the Senate and raised their hands and said, I swear that I have never seen any evidence that links smoking tobacco with lung cancer. And, you know, we have exactly the same situation now with the unnatural gas companies. You know, they put their hands up and they say, well, I've never seen any evidence that links fracking, you know, with the contamination of water, the soil, the air, with the negative health impacts, with impacts on pregnant women. You know, but yet the scientific studies, particularly say in Vernal regarding the pregnant women, and the EPA has even come out recently and admitted that it has identified a number of cases where the fracking industry has contaminated the water. And yet, you know, as you rightly acknowledge, unfortunately, the vast majority of people are chasing the dollar.
Right.
You know, but in many cases, like in the UK, you know, they're chasing a dollar literally to keep a roof over their head and food on their table.
Right.
So the debt slaves that have been created over the last 40 years, I mean, we've seen the demise of the middle classes, you know, both in the US and in the UK and elsewhere in the developed world. So that what we're seeing is this migration of wealth into the pockets of a fewer and fewer number of people. So obviously we've been building up a movement in the UK. It's not an NGO. In fact, we've adopted something that probably hasn't been done before, to my knowledge, where we build this network community by community. And so it's completely unstructured. There's no hierarchy, but we now have well over 1,000 communities around the UK who are working on trying to prevent this industry from establishing a footprint in their area. And what it's doing, God, it's really sad that it has taken this, but what it's doing is it's actually bringing communities together. And people from right across the social, the political, and the philosophical spectrum are actually coming together, united in their concern of this industry arriving in their community. Because these are people that are doing their own research, they're looking at the devastation in the US and in Australia, and realizing that there's absolutely no way that we can allow this here. So what we've seen at Standing Rock, at last, is something that has united a significant chunk of the nation. I mean, I'm very well aware that your mainstream media, will not be covering this. Neither is the mainstream media in the UK.
Right.
Of course, this is another classic example of the power of the alternative media. And it's why the mainstream media, both in the US and, of course, in the UK and certainly in Europe, they're running very, very scared now of the power of the alternative media. And of course, they're desperately trying to find ways to curtail the influence of the alternative media, whilst the mainstream is really in massive decline. I mean, in the UK, in the last 6 years, the print runs of the national newspapers have reduced by 30%. And the BBC, which still thinks that it's revered, but everybody knows that the BBC is actually worse today for propaganda than Pravda was in Russia at the height of the Soviet Empire. And, and I think it was Bill Hicks, of course, that amazing Texan, who said, it was George Carlin. He said, those who don't read the newspapers and don't watch TV know a damn sight more than those who do. And thank God for the fact that, more and more people are migrating towards the alternative media, because obviously there's millions and millions of outlets. And this is what I think has been a very, very significant contributor to what's occurring at Standing Rock. And as BJ was saying, I mean, what I know is that Standing Rock has been inspirational in the UK. And I hope that inspiration, spreads throughout the US, and that people will realize that, it takes some cojones to, put your neck on the block, especially with the level of militarization of the police in the US. But if we don't, then the legacy that we are leaving future generations just doesn't bear thinking about. Right.
Yeah, it's a hellish nightmare that we just simply can't allow to happen. And, to go back to your point about how some people are working on their own, that is just totally how it is over here. There's so many organizations and so many people spending late nights, drawing up fracking bans and plans for, plans to stop the devastation. So I hope that shows like this get people involved. For me, going to Standing Rock, when I came back, I immediately joined the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, which is my local, the Earth Allies chapter is my local chapter. And when I went to the meeting, it was 4 women, so, but we still are doing a lot. We have a lot of power, so, and we're going to use it.
Kira, you had an interesting observation there. And I have to say that even after now 4.5, 5 years, I would say that probably 70-odd%, maybe even 75% of the active anti-fracking campaign are female.
Mm-hmm.
And And, this is perhaps not too surprising because, the male of the species has had their sort of right brain shut down. And, every effort has been put on conditioning them, to the technocracy mindset, i.e. that, we could deal with any problem, whatever it is, as it arises, we'll deal with it. Yeah, they've had problems somewhere else, but we can deal with it. And I think that women have that natural maternal instinct, and the women are actually able to comprehend that if we screw up the water, especially in a densely populated island like the UK, which is reliant on its weather systems. In the US, the fracking industry has been sucking water out of the Great Lakes and the great river systems, obviously the Mississippi, Missouri, Ohio rivers. And over in the western states, of course, it's been sucking the water out of the aquifers, which is why people in West Texas and Northern California and parts of Colorado and Wyoming, they've had no water coming out of their faucets, for, in some cases, nearly 3 years. We don't have those aquifers. We don't have those great river systems or those great lakes. We're totally reliant on the weather cycles. And if we start creating acid rains because of this industry, just like they have in places in the US and certainly in southern Queensland, then, the bottom line is that a country like the UK will literally become uninhabitable within, perhaps 3 generations.
Wow. Yeah. And that's the reason why there's a difference between what they do out west and what they do in the east too, because of the population density. And so for a long time in the east, we've been able to fight it based on that very principle of it being so densely populated. And I imagine in the UK, you've been able to fight it up until now, where the fight's really getting serious for that same reason, where the industry was as reasonable as it could be for a while, but now they're stepping it up because it's all about profit. So if they keep if they keep ruining non-populated, human-populated areas, they can't keep their profit margin up. So now they're moving into the heavily populated areas as well. So the fight's going to get more intense because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, these guys, they are absolute sociopaths. I mean, they are, clinical sociopaths, because the evidence of the devastation is undeniable. But their attitude is, it's just collateral damage, and they'll either buy off the problem, or as we've seen in the UK, I mean, they'll just say, well, see you in court. And most of these companies, and I know many of the companies operating in particularly Pennsylvania, where the marginal costs of unconventional gas extraction are higher than in, say, West Texas. But these companies they're either filing for Chapter 11 and then just walking away, or they're operating with significant negative net worth because they've created a corporate structure so that these companies, not only will they never make a profit and therefore they'll never pay tax, whilst, of course, all the senior executives are paying themselves obscene salaries, but if there is a problem, they'll just literally walk away. And I think we've seen more Chapter 11s in this industry in the last 18 months than we'd seen since it got set up nearly 2 decades ago. And yet still, in the UK, where the marginal costs are much higher, I mean, it's just not viable. I mean, this is why, people are starting to ask the question, and what's the real agenda here? Because, whereas in West Texas, some of the companies claim that they can produce the unconventional hydrocarbons for $30-35 a barrel, which when it's $55 a barrel, at least means that, they've got a reasonable return. But in the UK, the marginal costs are such that it's going to cost at least $75 a barrel equivalent to get it out of the ground. So what the hell are they doing? Why are they doing it when it's pretty obvious that OPEC are going to maintain the price of a barrel of oil at around about $50-55, because they now know that that's the price that actually stops the unconventional gas industry or hydrocarbon industry from expanding. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Trump actually gets sworn in later this month, because obviously he's got Rex Tillerson as his Secretary of State, and as the former head of Exxon. Obviously, Tillerson is going to be bending Trump's ear about doing everything he can to, kill off the renewables industry and try and keep this dinosaur of a hydrocarbon industry alive.
Right. Yeah. Is this concerning to the UK as well, to see somebody like Trump get in America? I mean, what's the thought? Because over here,
whilst I don't think that Trump is necessarily the panacea, I think many of us are very, very happy that it's not Clinton. I mean, I think if Clinton had got in power, the agenda was very clear, and that was that we would probably by now be in World War III. So, at least with not Clinton, there is more of an element of the unknown, but that unknown may be equally unpalatable, but for different reasons.
Right. Yeah, we had. This is what the psychopaths in charge love to do. They love to give us impossible choices. So we got a choice between a sociopath and a narcissist. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Great choice. And I see how very well played it was, because a narcissist makes the perfect puppet, because they will always defer to the stronger predator as long as they can keep their narcissistic supply in place. So he's the perfect, puppet for whoever got him in there. Oh, God.
It really is going to be interesting.
It is.
I mean, obviously, I think by the middle of the year we'll have a pretty good idea of how the Trump presidency is going to play out. I mean, the one thing that I think we're very, very grateful for in Europe, and particularly in the UK, is that TTIP is dead. Because I mean, at least for the time being. But let's not think for 1 minute that the corporations are going to give up on this, because obviously the whole purpose of TTIP was to create a raft of legislation that effectively neutered all national sovereignty. And so this raft of corporate legislation would ride supreme, which would effectively mean that the global corporatists, i.e. the banksters managing the corporatists, effectively had total control. I mean, they would have won their game of Monopoly. They would have total control of the entire planet. At least, I mean, TTIP has served a purpose, because people are now starting to see that there is this agenda. And by stopping TTIP, at least it sort of kicked the can down the road. But, what we do have to certainly be very aware of is that they ain't going to give up. They are playing a game of Monopoly. And for anybody who's played Monopoly, the ultimate goal is to own everything on the board and to literally destroy, i.e. financially wipe out your opponents. And that's what these socio-psychopaths are playing.
Absolutely. And I actually said that in my last show. I said it's not enough for them to have most of it, because they want it all. We're going to take a quick break here, and then Unpa Numpa is going to join us for the second hour. Stick around.
You good?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second hour of The Bridge with Kira. We're here tonight with Ian Crane and the folks there at the Kirby Misperton camp to stop fracking in the UK. And the last hour we talked with BJ Nastacio, and now we're going to add Unpa Numpa to the call. I've interviewed Unpa Numpa several times during the Standing Rock, right when it got kicked off. So there's a bunch of past shows if people want to go back and look at the history of how things progressed at Standing Rock. you can go onto my blog, which is called Psychopaths in Charge. It's at kyoung4.wordpress.com, and all those past shows are there. Unpa Numpa's daughter was one of the first 5 women who jumped the fence and stopped the construction. And she's also one of the people that got bit by dogs, and everybody there got tear gassed and pepper sprayed. And
hello, Kira.
Hi, Unpa Numpa. Welcome to the bridge. I wanted you to meet Ian and Steve, who are here with me from the Kirby Misperton camp in the UK.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'd like to say hello to both of the gentlemen and thank them for the work that they're doing. I'd like to thank you, Kira, for once again having me on your program. It's always an honor and a privilege to do as much. I apologize for no video link up, but you know how I am when it comes to that. And plus, I'm at home here in Swiftburg, and I think you know the limited resources that are available to us here on Cheyenne River. But it is, as I said, an honor and privilege to be here and to speak with some brothers who are fighting the fight across the ocean. It's a real privilege.
Thank you. So were you listening the first hour, or do we need to catch you up a little bit?
I was able to catch the half hour, the last half hour, but yeah, you could catch me up a little bit. I missed the first half hour.
Okay. Well, they only have one fracking well in the UK, so they have a chance to really save their beautiful island from the devastation that we've seen here in our country. So I'm really happy that they're at this stage instead of the stage that we're at. So that's the big difference. Plus, even though they do face a lot of police brutality, they're not facing the militarized police force that we're facing over here. So that also gives them another leg up on being able to stop the psychopathic regime from destroying their island. So
well, they are most fortunate in that regard. And, the difficulty we encountered resisting the pipeline in North Dakota, none of us could have foreseen the level of government violence that was used to prevent us from protesting. I often think back, and I've been talking with a lot of the veterans from the early days of Ochete Shakoi back in August and September, when it was really heady days for us, and we were roaming through the countryside, going to work sites, and having really good actions, meaningful actions, powerful, prayerful actions. And then as I talk with people who were at camp, as long as our camp was there from August until December, when the darkness began to set in and the tactics that the government and DAPL began using grew more violent and more insidious. And one thing I do remember from back then was meeting people from across the world and the talk of this being a global movement, and the need to connect with people who are resisting industry throughout Europe and throughout Asia, and for us to connect. There is a media blackout. I did hear Ian talking to that about the BBC and their propaganda on behalf of government and corporation. Well, that's what we've been experiencing from the get-go in this country. A complete, mainstream media blackout, and when the coverage is showing, it is often not in a favorable light for protectors and defenders. But one thing we have known all along since the DAPL fight began is that we have our own media now, and this program today is a perfect example of that. We do not need the mainstream media to be in this fight. We do not need the mainstream media to build and sustain this movement. We do have social media, and we need to fully implement that tool, social media, I believe, while it's still available to us, while we're still able to. We see fascism already taking a strong foothold in the United States, and those with fascist tendencies being emboldened by the election of Trump and the gerrymandering of Congress so that it is in full conservative control. We need to use the internet while it still is freely available to us as it is. So this program today is very important, and I'm sure more programs of yours and others of your like that will follow are very important to establish these connections now so that this can become a global fight to save the environment for our children and our grandchildren, whether here in this country or in Europe or in Asia or wherever.
Yeah, it's all our mother. We're all on the same planet together, and that's why this needs to be a global movement and why we need to connect with each other. And I hope that we can continue to have these little mini water protector conferences between each other and share our experiences with each other and share our victories, because that's part of our connection too, is that we can really celebrate our victories together, because any stopping of this agenda is a victory. Anywhere you stop it in the world is a victory. So
absolutely, I agree. And one thing that I would hope our European allies would be cognizant of is the need to watch legislative processes at this time too. Right now in North Dakota, you are seeing bills introduced into the legislature that would basically criminalize DAPO protesting. The most recent example is that they're seeking to ban masks of all things, for all but a few exceptions. I will always remember one action that we had in Bismarck in early October, where we went to the Bismarck Memorial Bridge, and we basically shut it down, all 6 lanes of it. And when the police arrived, it was a peaceful protest. We were singing traditional songs. We were offering prayers. As soon as the police arrived and formed their line, they announced that we were rioting. In fact, I think the direct quote from the commander was, "This is a riot. You have 3 minutes to disperse." And that was all that they said to us. We answered back. I answered back specifically, yelled at the police that it is not a riot, that we were exercising our First Amendment rights guaranteed underneath their Constitution, and that we had the right to peaceably assemble and to petition for a redress of grievances. As soon as I got done saying that, the response came back, "This is a riot. You have 3 minutes to disperse." So we have to be very mindful of how government and corporations are going to combat our efforts, combat our movement. But there are fronts on multiple areas. And to be truly organized and to do this in the right way, we have to have allies that are able to address all those areas, the legal, the legislative. We certainly have to have legal protection funds set up. I know in this country, I would assume in the United Kingdom as well, for those who are arrested in acts of protection and acts of defense. Those type of resources need to be begun to be built, to gathered, and to stored for use in the future here. So in addition to physical presence in camps and active protesting, active resistance, we need the support in the background too, the legal support, the logistical support, the camp supplies that are needed. All week I have been in contact with other camps across the country, people who are either going to them, who are a part of their organization. And I am emphasizing this to them, that part of a real camp, a successful resistance camp, is the legal aspect to it, though, so you can take care of your people who might get arrested in peaceful protest.
Right, and the embedded media. So we had Unicorn Riot, and I would say that Ian really is embedded media. So you guys have that down too. Do you have the same type of legal sort of help? Do you have lawyers who are on your side helping you out over there in the UK?
Yes, we work very closely with lawyers called solicitors in this country and barristers. We get a lot of representation pro bono without charge to us, and a lot of people working who feel very much as we do that this industry needs to be stopped. And we've got huge support on the legal side. All aspects of society, quantity surveyors, like people who can go over the legislation or the land law, find out where the boundaries are, where peaceful assembly can be made without incurring any legal problems for those gathering and exercising their rights. We exercise rights under Articles 10 and 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights. That gives us the right to assemble and protest. So we're very much on those rights and standing up for them. And to date, the police have said that they will respect those rights. Whether they tend to go on doing that, whether it's just a line they've seen on other camps where they've said yes, we're respecting this right, but they've then just gone on to abuse people and push them out of the way and push lorries forward in disregard to the health and safety of those trying to protect the land.
Do you consider yourself water protectors in the UK?
Yeah.
As well? You do?
Very
Says the one female in the room. I hear your voice. That was the first thing I heard you say besides your name.
I've been
tell us your...
in the background.
Tell us your name again.
Gabby. Gabriel.
Kathy Gabriel. Gabby, okay.
G-A-B-Y.
All right, welcome, Gabby. Can you tell me how many women are there in the camp with you?
Ooh. Tonight, or we come and go. Maybe it's about 50-50 actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some nights there's more women and some nights there's more men.
Oh, okay. And do you have like sort of the spiritual aspect to it? Like, you know, do you pray together, sing together, things like that in your camp as well?
But we're, if you like, more secular. I mean, it's like I said that, you know, every part of the social, political, philosophical, religio, spiritual is represented. And so the importance for us is that we are inclusive. So, you know, we try and avoid doing anything where somebody would feel excluded. Because, you know, if we don't focus on what we agree on, then obviously the establishment has won. The establishment are past masters at identifying opportunity for division and just putting that wedge in that division and then obviously ramming it home.
Sure.
And, you know, we have to get smart. You know, we have to start to recognize and understand the, you know, Machiavellian games that the establishment will play. You know, recognizing as well that, you know, they've got a lot of experience of manipulation of the masses. And, you know, we have to be able to see that coming and resist it. And every now and again, obviously, there's going to be a little bit of success because, you know, they're going to identify weakness. And then, you know, we have to, if you like, make sure that we separate that weakness and say, okay, you know, that's a problem. Let that problem go away. We'll push it away because the majority of us will stay focused. And this is what the establishment really has a problem with. The establishment would love to have an NGO, a national anti-fracking organization, like Lock the Gate in Australia, for example. And obviously, you know, when you see that there's 18,000 wells in southern Queensland, despite the fact that Lock the Gate has done some good work, it hasn't exactly got a great track record. And, you know, whereas we in the UK, with no NGO, with no national organisation, with over 1,000 completely independent and autonomous anti-fracking communities, a lot of individuals. I mean, I work very much as an individual, as does Steve, as does Gabby. You know, we're not part of any group. We are simply individuals, but we work with groups, we work with other individuals, and the establishment has no idea how to deal with us. You know, they would love to be able to pinpoint somebody and say, well, we've spoken to this leader or that leader, but there's no leader.
No leader.
There's a lot of singing around the campfire.
Yeah. See,
Cars on site, drums, and quite a lot of music and coming together and a meeting of souls.
Yes. Yes. It's just not under the auspices of, you know, religion or spirituality. Did you have something that you needed to say, Steve?
Yes. There's a question from the Irish crew.
Oh, okay.
I was going to pass in your chat. Plus, I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
After this particular one, and you can get through that, and I'll ask.
Okay.
I'll put it in the Skype chat for you.
Okay. All right. So what you were just saying there, Ian, is really perfect based on conversations I've been having with Unpa Numpa about how we should take this next phase or this next chapter of the movement here in the U.S. because exactly what you're talking about, they had leaders to go to manipulate so that they could kill what we had. So tell us more, Unpa Numpa, about how you see things progressing in the next chapter of the movement.
Well, I believe that for this country, we need to emphasize that it is all Indian land, Europe. And you came up with that, first mentioned it to me a while ago, and I fell in love with that right away. And what I'm hoping to see are that nations who allied themselves with Standing Rock, with Cheyenne River in this country will set up their own camps in their own areas, autonomous camps that are welcome to everybody. And we can set up a network in this country of resistance camps to begin fighting this industry at every level. That is what I see as the natural next step for the movement. There are camps already in Texas, Camp Toyaville in Texas, southern Texas, to begin fighting pipelines, to begin its existence is specifically to train direct action warriors, nonviolent direct action warriors. There's also the Gadadi camp in Arkansas, which is fighting what is called the Diamond Pipeline, a nearly $1 billion project that crosses through indigenous lands in Arkansas. That camp is just recently established and has issued a call for warriors and supplies. There are marches happening. For instance, next Friday is Inauguration Day in this country, when President-elect Trump will take the office. And already in one of the major cities in this country, Minneapolis, a resistance march is planned, a Black Snake resistance march on Inauguration Day in the city of Minneapolis. That is the next step for the movement, is to keep what was built at Ochete-Shikoi sustained, to keep the alliances that were formed, the friendships that were made ongoing. That we stay in touch with each other and we look at 2017 as a year of direct action. Hopefully 2016 will be remembered as the year the revolution began in the United States, and 2017 will be the year where we got it fully in operation. Organized to a certain degree. The idea of no leadership is attractive, but eventually it's got to come down to some people who say, hey, we need to do this or we need to go that way. That leadership will organically emerge. It did at Ochete-Shikoi until the veterans came in and made their presence felt at the end of November, at the beginning of December. The camp was led by different headsmen and women who were making decisions on behalf of the smaller camps within Ochete-Shikoi and working together that way. That is how I see the movement progressing as well, that we do not need national leadership. What we need right now are local leaders, regional leaders, to organize people of like minds into resistance. That is the next step. That is what I am concentrating on.
Yeah, me too. And there's going to be a lot more camps popping up. Even within, my area alone, there's a lot of agendas in terms of fracking. They really want to frack everything. They just don't care that it's not worth the energy that it takes. What we get out of it, it's not worth the cost.
This is ultimately, for me, a struggle between two different worldviews. And either you look at the world as presented perhaps where it was given to man to do with as he pleases and given dominion over it. I reject that. And I know I'm not alone in rejecting that worldview. I definitely adhere to traditional Lakota values and indigenous values, that the planet is something that we need to sustain, take care of, not to plunder, and to leave it in as good a shape as we did when we found it. Now, over 7 billion people on the planet are going to leave a footprint. So what we have to do is take our values that we have traditionally and incorporate that into how do we take care of 7 billion on this planet, 7 billion people on this planet in a sustainable way. I know one thing for sure, and that is the way they are going about it now, and that is the powers that be, the oligarchy, the governments, the corporations, the way they are going about it has already poisoned a significant part of the earth. Here on Cheyenne River, we are facing epidemic rates of disease. Those of you who have listened to your program over the months and have heard me speak about, but myself, my family, my little what we call Tioshwe, my extended family, has suffered here on this reservation from disease that cannot be attributable to any other factors except environmental factors. The fact that our water is poisoned here, the Missouri River is poisoned, where I'm looking out my window and I can see the Missouri from where I'm sitting here. And know that I've lived along it my whole life, and I've seen all my family and friends who have died young, who have not made it to their 40s or 50s due to diseases that they should not be encountering. What can explain this? except environmental causes at this point. When we know the toxins that are in the Missouri River, when we know the toxins that are in our soil around here as a result of industry, of raping the earth, unchecked.
Yeah, totally unchecked. It's set up to be able to do that's legal, but resisting it is not. And so in the last hour, we talked about how the psychopaths in charge in the UK would introduce this terrorism type of bill to increase their power, increase their militarized power over the population there, like they've done here. And so, I mean, I would speculate that maybe, that either way we went, with Clinton or Trump, we were going to get the same result, which was more fascism. It's just with Clinton, it would be more covert, and now with Trump, it's just going to really be overt.
And then look at what we're encountering with the progressive left's champion, Obama, as president. Look at the brutalization of protesters that has taken place in North Dakota. I stood face to face with a militarized Army Humvee with hundreds of National Guard troops, state law enforcement and local law enforcement facing us down and advancing on us. That is underneath this current president who leaves office next Friday. What are we going to face against a hostile regime? Right. Scary to think about. That's why we need to organize. That's why we need to get disciplined now and to begin camps everywhere throughout the country. That we have multiple places that we can go to.
How many camps do you have in the UK right now? 4. So that's 4 camps in an area that is not as large as Texas, right? So Texas is bigger than the UK. So that's you guys are doing great. Plus, you have the support of your community surrounding you. So you're really in a really good position over there. And I'm really
here that anybody that looks at the fracking realizes in a few minutes that it's not something that can be done safely. Not on a small island that is very dependent on the fresh water supply for agricultural, for drinking. It's just a massive no-brainer. And the camps that we've established have done a tremendous job in waking people up and explaining. We've had hundreds of people on the site today. Each individual asked for more information about why the camps are here and the dangers. We've got students coming up and they're writing reports and they're telling other students about the massive dangers of fracking. So the word is spreading, and it's only a matter of time before we hit that critical number of people that will be standing out in front of all the lorries saying, no, you must go back to base. We'll stop the industry dead that way.
Oh, can't hear you. What happened? Is it okay? Are you guys back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you just cut out there in the end there, Steve. And I have a little behind me that's going in and out. So sorry about that. What's that?
I think it was just a bit of internet lag, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I am in my truck. I live in a rural area, so I don't get good internet, so I have to do my show in town where I can...
We're in the middle of a field, out in the middle of farmland. We've got the internet up. We've built the twin towers, and we've got an internet dongle receiving 4G internet on the top of a tower. So that's how we're getting internet currently.
That's great. So you're not currently experiencing the jamming of your cell signal. That's something that
we have that at large protests there, where we like the protest in London recently, the anonymous protest, where where you'd be following the live feed 1 minute, and then all of the live feed, the whole of the capital would be cut in one foul swoop. So they've got their finger on the button. The minute something happens that they don't like, they will hit the live streaming. So that's why it's very important for us to record via other means, not just live streaming. They've got total control of the digital networks. So we maintain separate cameras that record, and we can upload the footage at a later time. We're not dependent on that cell network, which is very closely monitored. We're fully aware of that. Right.
What they were doing at Standing Rock was they weren't only jamming the signal, so we couldn't get any type of signal out of the camp, but they were also making our batteries die. They were sucking our batteries dry, and we've all had issues and things with our phones since leaving there. They were spying on people's phones and communications, things like that. So they're once the oil industry gets involved, they end up pushing the government to use all of their toys to,
we're very switched to the manipulation of the digital technology. So we're fully equipped there to switch to analog communication, which is extremely difficult for the modern technology to have any effect on whatsoever. We use multi-band radios where you can't physically monitor. You'd have to have somebody sat there all the time monitoring to actually listen into what conversations are going on. So we're very aware that we've had court cases where police freely admit that they don't like the use of things like the analog walkie-talkies. They're happy with the use of digital mobile phones, obviously because they can listen into all the phone calls and read all the text at their leisure. So it's a case of thinking out the box, and the old CB radios have certainly been out and getting some use, and create a lot more problems for the digital savvy jamming and monitoring of the communication network.
So the analog, you're talking about walkie-talkies. What else could you use for analog communication besides walkie-talkies?
CB radios. They were very popular here in the 90s, the 80s, 90s. There's many of those that have been dug out of the loft, and those are a form of communication of use. And there are multiple bands, like the American system worked on AM modulation, might work, whereas the UK systems were FM. So there's two different networks and thousands of channels, which would be a nightmare to monitor if you were wanting to go back or listen back into those old systems.
So that's something that you would recommend really for these camps, is start using this analog communication if they're not already.
I don't know if you remember the 80s and the communities that
I do.
CB radios formed, and they were it was a community thing where people got and talked and chatted, and instead of just sitting
kind of like this.
like this, yeah. So the technology has improved. It's gone digital, but the old things that people used to use, they can still be dug up, and we're very into recycling here. When we ask for equipment and clothing and stuff to keep warm here, we're not saying go out and buy new stuff. We want the old stuff, so there's a broken kit, I do electronics, I repair things like that. So we want the old things and get the old lanterns, some of the old stuff where the wood burning stoves and things like that are a massive help on when you're just pitched up in a field getting ready to stop trucks. It's a lot better way to keep warm and to cook it, and it's more sustainable. People. Yeah. We get the solar panels out. We've got a wind turbine coming down, so we can, create, live on renewable energy. And that's the way that society itself should be going in dependent on things like nuclear energy and experimental, out and out dangerous forms of energy extraction, like fracking and coal bed methane and all the other things that's which are no good for the planet. We need to start preserving the planet because it's not ours. It doesn't belong to us. We are merely protecting it for the children and their children. I think if we leave a toxic environment for our children, what they're going to think of us in later generations, we're going to be the generation that kills the planet.
Right.
Did you see questions in the chat there, Kira?
Sorry. No, I didn't. Okay. So, I guess this one would be for Unpa Numpa. Do Indigenous Native groups have sovereign rights over their lands? I'm guessing not if state police troops can be used to remove the lawful owners of the property or land. This is a conversation.
It is a quasi-sovereignty. In fact, I don't even consider it sovereignty, and I know many others don't as well. All decisions of tribal councils in the United States are subject to approval by the Secretary of the Interior, not even the President of the United States, but a cabinet appointee. That is not sovereignty. At any time, the President can order federal troops into reservations for whatever reason they'd like. They can send federal authorities in. We don't have jurisdiction over major crimes on our reservations. That is the purview of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We do not have sovereignty in this country, real sovereignty. One thing that many have argued over the years, Indigenous leaders in this country have argued over the years, is that we need to be as sovereign as we act. And we have seen a real lack of courage from Indigenous leaders in this country when it comes to asserting our sovereignty. Because when you do try to do it, you see the response that is visited upon us, such as what happened in North Dakota over the past several months. So it is a question of courage on the part of Indigenous people now. How much are you willing to sacrifice for true sovereignty? How much are you willing to sacrifice to live truly free in our ancestral country? That is the question for Indigenous people in this country and perhaps throughout the world. How courageous are you willing to be battling what you know to be wrong?
That's the question. And what are you willing to give up in terms of, your comfort? That was the biggest thing that, going to Standing Rock was.
I understand. Kira, I could just speak for me personally, but I spent a couple of weeks in a rather affluent part of the country, Minneapolis suburbs. And I felt so out of place after 4 months living in a teepee at Ochete-Shikoin.
Right.
I missed it. I missed the daily interaction with comrades and allies. I missed going to the actions. I missed planning the future with people of like mind. And it's been hard adjusting to life outside of camp for me. In fact, I've maintained regular contact pretty much with just those who have been to Ochete-Shikoin since I left. We left on December 5th, which was the day of the evacuation order. That was just by coincidence as a blizzard was bearing down on us, and we knew we were going to leave our camps in Kalaluzaha and Weon Camp. We knew we were departing. We have stayed in touch with one another because it's really hard to talk to people who aren't that plugged into the movement. We didn't experience what we experienced with the planes and helicopters, what our camp called Charlie circling us day and night, without the morning wake-up call from the elders at 6 a.m. in Lakota, Kiktapo, wake up, and just the feelings that were in the camp, the real camaraderie, the real sense of purpose that we had. So I've stayed in touch pretty much exclusively with those who endured at least more than a day, more than a minute up at Ochete-Shikoin. And I've been encouraging them. A lot of them have been feeling, betrayed by the leadership at Standing Rock, by David Archambault and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribal Council. A lot of them have been feeling lied to and left out in the cold. And I'm trying to tell them, even if there's not a camp in your area, or even if you're unable to start a camp in your area, you as an individual are capable of doing great things to help this movement, no matter where you live. You can easily start fundraising. I put a post up on Facebook earlier this week about doing just that. Start squirreling resources, building and amassing resources, especially financial resources, for the movement. Work with people who you trust, who you've known for some time, who you know are of a like mind. Be willing to take in allies with proven track records so that you can keep your planning circle small. And then you could just create actions around where you live. Even little guerrilla actions, urban guerrilla actions, where you're spray painting Mini Wichoni Water is Life or No Dapple anywhere. Just buy yourself a can of spray paint and go out there and do a little urban guerrilla work, and get the message out there. Keep the message alive. Sustain it. In other areas, you can produce literature, print out your own literature about the industry, about our movement, and start dropping them in places like in banks that are doing business with these companies, with these energy companies. Put a stack of literature on a counter in a bank and walk out the door. Go into private offices of companies that are related to the energy companies and leave stacks of information there. Go into branches of government offices. They're free and open to everybody. Get the word out there. Get the information out there. If you're not able to do it through social media, if you're not able to do it through a camp in your area, you could be your own resistance fighter in your own home. The internet is a remarkable tool. Start using it for more than what you're using it more now. There's so much people can do in their own homes. In fact, if you live in an area where there are a large group of protectors and defenders or those sympathetic to the movement, plan noise demos. Identify key junctions in your city, traffic junctions, or the banks. Wells Fargo has been hit several times with very small actions, involving only 2 to a handful of people. All of this can be done on a global scale, on a local level. And that is what I'm encouraging people to do who are feeling betrayed, who are feeling discouraged at this point, to be a warrior. Stand up. Take courage. Do what you need to do in your home. Do what you need to do in your community, in your state. You can do it. It's already proven thousands of times over that these actions are successful, that they are meaningful. We just need more people now, Kira. That's what we need.
Yeah, 10 people can shut a bank down in an hour.
Less than that, yeah.
2 people can. You guys shut a bank down in 2 people?
It wasn't me. A friend I was talking to at a march recently, there was Barclays Bank owns 97% of Third Energy, who want to frack here in Kirby Misperton, and so we nationally organised. Not myself, but I was part of a national day against Barclays, and a mother and daughter took a sofa and a standard lamp and a little coffee table into their local Barclays bank and sat down with a cup of tea.
Wow.
Barclays for the day.
See? Wow.
We're occupying the bank. We're having a cup of tea until you stop funding Third Energy.
See, that's amazing.
2 people, mother and daughter.
And over here, those Wells Fargo actions they said they're going to shut down 500 branches now. Wells Fargo has announced that. So that's, Wells Fargo, we picked them out. I'm actually sitting in front of the Wells Fargo right now. I'm having my little action in my car.
Lock down, girl, lock down.
Wait a minute, I have to pee. But yeah, I'm very encouraged by the small number of people who can shut a bank down, and I think that hopefully it won't cause armed guards outside of all your local banks, or more terrorist legislation of they'll call us economic terrorists and eco-terrorists, and meanwhile they're killing all life on the planet, but we're the terrorists for resisting.
The Oxford English Dictionary, the original definition of the word terrorism is government by intimidation. I've taken the word and twisted it around. They are the terrorists. Right.
Just like twisting the word anarchy or anarchist, or the idea or meme of anarchy is just without the psychopaths in charge. It's all the good stuff without them. we can.
Government is, if you break it apart, govern is control, men is the mind. mind control system.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, Stephen, was there another question you said that you had?
Yeah, it was my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, to all three of you, Ian, you, and Unpa Numpa. There's a man out there. Well, actually, there's a group. I need to do a little research, but the man, me and another host, interviewed him. His name is Paul Sanfuego. What he's actually doing the last decade or so is going around the country and teaching communities how to write local laws into their own local municipalities and getting some things changed. They've stopped fracking in Pennsylvania, some other cities and states all over the country. They've stopped eminent domain from happening in small areas and seem to be effective. I wondered if you had heard of that group, or any of you people have heard of that group. Or
I have not. I've not heard of that group.
Or Paul himself. I can probably get some contact for Kara.
Okay, excellent. How about you over in the UK? Have you heard of this group?
No, I'm not familiar with that group at all. I mean, we have an opportunity in the UK to input on local legislation. I mean, one of the aspects right now is the sort of waste management and minerals plans that each county is required to put together. And, of course, if one can influence those plans to make it so prohibitive for the disposal of the toxic waste to be transported on local roads, then, you know, that's one way in which we can actually bring this industry to a halt. But, you know, we're working with a sociopathic, parasitic government that is constantly basically pretending to be interested in what local communities want to say and how they want to influence what goes on in their community. But they're only really prepared to do that as long as the local community is effectively acquiescent to their central agenda. You know, the moment that any community goes against the central government agenda, then we find the full force of the government brought into play to overrule the local community. But, you know, one of the things that I said earlier, this is pulling people together like nothing before. And I'll give you an example. One of the people who has been incredibly supportive of us at this particular camp is a 77-year-old former public school teacher, and public school in the UK sense, which means private. So, you know,
It's opposite, yeah.
And he has never had any cause to question the legitimacy of the establishment. But because this community where we are right now has done everything that it could possibly do to pursue the opposition to the unconventional gas agenda through democratic process. And what they realized is that that process is bankrupt. So even somebody at 77 who's never questioned the legitimacy of the establishment is now saying, well, hang on a second, I can see that there's not just something wrong with fracking, but actually there's a whole bunch of other things that need to be addressed. And this is one of the, if you like, benefits. It's perverse that we have to do it in this way, but it is actually a portal for people to start becoming aware that, you know, there are other aspects of democratic deficiency that actually need to be addressed, because we are sliding into a fascist state. And of course, once again, it's another word that has been misused, because, you know, fascism is simply government by the corporations, or where government is controlled by the corporation. And that's pretty much, you know, what you have in the US,
yes,
and it's what we have in the UK. And, you know, one of the things that we have to try to recover is to get back to the sovereignty of the community.
Right. Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. In fact, speaking for the tribes in the area where I live, South Dakota, North Dakota, environmental law is new for us. And there's reasons for that. I mean, we have just recently become aware of the issues. You know, we've been fighting for survival for over a century now. And now that we are in a better position than we were certainly just 30, 40 years ago, environmental law is something that tribal councils are beginning to address. And after his name was mentioned to me, I went to Mr. Cienfuegos' website, actually. And I am in total agreement with what I am reading so far. And it's powerful what I'm reading about the rights of communities and the need for communities to start passing their own local laws to protect themselves from industry, to protect themselves from federal government. I thank you very much for the information that I have before me now, and I know when we're off the air here, I'm going to be looking into it further.
You're welcome.
But I can tell you that the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe in South Dakota has begun addressing environmental law and encoding it for ourselves. And this would be a very, very good area for tribes to look into for themselves. But the problem is for Indigenous people in the United States is our tribal government has worked hand in hand with government and industry to exploit natural resources in several instances. The Crow tribe in Montana in particular has allowed heinous strip mining of their natural resources for profit. The Navajo Nation even has an oil derrick on their tribal flag. They've worked so closely with industry when it comes to stripping oil and uranium resources from their homeland. So definitely this is something I'm very appreciative to be made aware of, but I can tell you tribes are beginning to address environmental laws in their statutes at this point in time.
I guess there's a man named Thomas Lindsay as well. He's the one that started this group. I passed the link to you, Kira, in the Skype chat.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it to Mujiki as well so he can put it in the Revolution Radio chat.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thanks. So we're approaching the last 5-10 minutes of the show. Is there anything that you want to get out there in the UK into the world about, the kind of support that you want, or are you looking for other people to start local groups in their area, or all of the above? What do you want to get out there before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think the crucial element is that, we've got to break away from the conditioning and programming that we have to function in a hierarchy. For a lot of people, this is currently beyond their bounds of comprehension or perception because all they've ever experienced is being in a hierarchy, either being at the top of that hierarchy or subjugating themselves within that hierarchy. And, one of the things that we are learning is that, we can function as communities without hierarchy. And, we could work in symbiosis with communities that still function with a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, obviously, literally respecting the absolute sovereignty of each of the groups. But, this is a new way of operating. And obviously it's not without its difficulties. But the beauty of it is that if you can get it to work, the establishment has no answer for it. And what it is, it's incredibly empowering. Because the problem is that, if you have any kind of even perceived hierarchy, it's disempowering. Because people sort of, rely on somebody who's further up the hierarchy to watch their back. Because they think, oh, that's okay, I don't need to do anything. Because they've got it all under control. Here, our ethos is that basically if you think of something, if you think of a job that needs to be done, it's yours. Go do it. And it's changing people's vocabulary so that, one of the things that I'm sure that you're all familiar with is people saying, oh, have you thought of this? Or have you thought of that? Have you done this? Have you done that? And it's getting people to understand that actually what we want to hear is, I am doing or I have done. A commitment for people to participate. And what this brings is it brings the creativity that is available from each and every individual within the community. And the establishment has no answer for this. And so, it's still evolving, obviously, and it will be hopefully an evolution that continues, way beyond this particular campaign. Because hopefully when people see that it works, when people see that each and every one of them has a significant contribution to make, that, the more they get involved, the more they will actually recognize that they are making a contribution. then obviously it's almost self-fulfilling. But that's just my perception. What about you guys?
Well, when people call for a revolution, that's the wrong idea. Because when you revolve something, you're just replacing one ruler with another one, and you've got the same problem. What we need is an evolution, It's a paradigm shift where we're awakening and becoming more empowered, and we need to evolve past that structure where we have this hierarchy. It's outdated, it's outmoded. The new one is the new paradigm is taking power for yourself. And it's with that power, when everybody comes, that we can do something about it and change the current system.
Gabby, did you have anything?
I was nodding along to what Steve said. DIY, do it yourself.
Do it yourself, that's right. What about you, Unpa Numpa?
2017 is going to be a very good year for our people. And by our people, I mean human beings.
Yes. All the relatives. All of our relatives across the planet who are responding to the call. It's really coming from the earth, really. Help me. We're all living because she's giving to us. We wouldn't be here if she wasn't sharing and giving to us. So I do know what you mean about philosophically, Steve, the revolution, what you're talking about there, that we need the evolution. And I certainly think that that's what we saw at Standing Rock, is we saw an evolution, we saw a commitment to nonviolence that really, in the beginning, the establishment didn't know what to do with that because they kept trying to infiltrate in the old ways. And they couldn't do it anymore because we weren't responding with any more violence. And, so that's my take on it. And what about you, Unpa Numpa, with this evolution, this concept of evolution?
I'm sorry, Kira, could you say that again?
What do you think about this concept of evolution, an evolution versus a revolution that Steve was talking about?
It's well put, and but it all comes down to change. We need change, and meaningful systemic change, political, economic systems. That is what's needed, not just in the United States and Europe, but throughout the world. And so let 2017 be a year of change. We have several catalysts for change now from Trump and Putin and the other psychopaths. We have plenty of catalysts to give us a reason to fight for change and to pray for it if that is your way, but to just get off your ass and get busy. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you care about human beings being around in the way we are today, 30, 40 years from now, then you need to get busy, and you need to awaken, and you need to join us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're here, and we're not going to ask nicely anymore. We're going to take our power, we're going to stick together, and we're going to keep having these conversations where we talk about what we're doing and we share what we're doing and inspire others to get off their asses in their local communities. So please, Ian, Steve, Gabby, thank you so much for joining me, and I would love to keep in touch and celebrate your success with you as you go through this journey. You're at the beginning of it now, since you've just established camp, and I hope that it's a really successful chapter of the evolution of our movement here, our global movement of water protection and land defending for everybody. I'd
like to echo that solidarity from Cheyenne River with our relatives in the UK.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kira. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to share with you tonight.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.